I think it's beautiful that you wrote this about your sister. And unfortunately, she passed away. And can you tell me the process, or how long did it take you to write the book?
Well, I didn't set out to write a book. It
Okay.
sort of developed a little bit over time. And so my sister passed away right before lockdown, so in December of
Mhm.
2019. And so in that way, we were fortunate that we were able to, have a funeral and gather our family and friends and be together. But then, shortly after, all went into lockdown and were so isolated. And I had a little bit more time on my hands because everything was sort of slowing down and wasn't having to chase children and travel for work and things like that. So I ended up picking up a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron that's been around for a long time.
Yes.
Um, and I'd heard about it for years and people had spoken really highly of it. And it has 12 chapters and it has you sort of work through a process of exploring your creativity. And that was something that felt important to me at the time, was to figure out how to get some of this emotion and what I was processing out. And so, one of the primary things that she recommends is a process that she calls morning pages, which is a daily practice of writing before doing anything else in the morning, and you write 3 pages. And what I found in that was I started writing poetry. I was spending a lot of time outside. We were walking a lot, and I was feeling very connected to nature. And I live in a really beautiful part of Southern California, and things were blooming, and the sky was extremely blue without any of the pollution. And so I started writing what turned out. I didn't know that they were poems at the time. They were just these sort of entries that I was writing, and I really wanted to sort of, when I stepped back, I wanted to capture them for my kids. I was, with my sister gone, I was very cognizant of how quickly things can go, and really wanting to make sure that my children knew me. Like, I was thinking through, like, had I imparted everything that was important for them to have known from their mom. And it was such a scary time, as everyone remembers. I mean, people were, you know, in real crisis globally, and so death was front and center in all of our minds. And so I typed them up, and mostly to first give to them, and then I realized after that there were a number of universal things about being human in the poems, and so started sharing them with some other people, and then wrapped it with an essay about what had happened with my sister and the process that I went through. And my hope is that it is helpful to other people who are suffering from some sort of loss. My loss happened to be, a death, but is certainly applicable to any kind of loss and grief, and the importance of connecting with other people and taking care of oneself.
It's beautiful, and to me, writing is therapeutic, and it's just by itself. You don't have to make it public, and you have the courage to finally, I guess, put it all together, make it public. And I think it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, I like to say, I sort of 3 things I like to say, like walk it, talk it, write it. And, I think to be able to get outside, I mean, you more than anyone I know, that, to understand the importance of being physical and getting outside and getting some of that emotion up and
right,
out of your body. And then I think the importance of talking to other people, be it friends or a
right,
professional, to sort of work
right.
through it. And then certainly the writing or being creative in some way, I think is really useful. Those 3 things, they certainly helped me.
I think for some reason, from my background, I don't know why people like push down people are trying to be creative. I think it is very healing in
Yeah,
itself.
I agree. I wrote in the book, I think that the process of taking the emotion that you have, sort of pulling it apart, rolling it around, and then putting it into something creative, empowers you and allows you to sort of recognize what it was and then transform it into something positive and something beautiful. And, that's either it eats you alive and takes you down the tubes, or you have to make peace with it and do something to move your life forward. And I think the creative process is really the best vehicle to do that.
And I think just books in general are just reading books are healing for a lot of people. And I think what you're doing is great. The one book that helped me after my last cancer diagnosis was Seth Godin's book called It's Your Turn. I think, have you heard of that book?
I don't know it.
And yeah, it's called It's Your Turn. And I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. Because that's after I wrote my first book based on that. And it was very different. It wasn't poems, but it was a little bunch of different short stories. And I like that. It kind of just makes you think and what are the opportunities out there and just be yourself, I think. And it makes sense. And then
Yeah.
nature reminds me to be in the moment, right? You have to
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, and it's so regenerative, right? I mean, in terms of, you know, be it, the seasons or, different, watching nature just continue to come back. It's inspiring, right? If nothing else, you
Right.
see all this life, and also realize that you're part of something much bigger, and that, your concerns are, in the size of the universe, fairly small, and that you have to keep things in perspective and keep moving forward.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, it is. We're all connected. We all need to be kind, right? And we have to be, I like to say, respectful. And when something bad does happen, I think it's also good to pause before you react. I've seen, even though bad things happen during COVID, I've seen more people go outside more, and they are appreciating that opportunity now, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has had a really positive impact in many ways, where I see people making different choices for their life. I think both respecting the fact that nothing is can be taken for granted, and that life is short,
Yes, it
and
is.
that we have to make sure that we're living each day, very consciously and deliberately. And that was very much, at the front of my mind when I was writing the book, that I wanted to ensure that I was, pausing and appreciating and making the most of each day. Because what I saw from my sister's situation was obviously that you just can't count on that. And so it's I do think that that's a positive for people to be able to take away. And I think some of the slowing down was pretty universally positive for people.